So me and my rich friends, I think that's really funny that you brought that up. Definitely levels, financial levels, and not everybody is there, but I think the principle applies. So as we go through and work on the financial literacy course as a community co-development course, right? And I think what you brought up about having rich friends is connected to the work that we're doing, because the difference is we don't always recognize that the folks that we're working with are indeed working with limited resources. We're hoping that we're putting something out there that will eventually be seen as something that's wonderful and really elevate the thinking, work towards the evolution of how people are transforming their lives through financial literacy, through mental wellness, spiritual, emotional maturity. Those are things we're doing. Funny you mentioned it because I noticed it. Check out the Land Ethics podcast from Jay Tillery, Mr. Black Cotton. But on that particular podcast, what they were talking about and discussing were finances, how much money you should have in the state of an emergency, so forth and so on. We need to be scaling that number a bit and thinking, okay, well, if someone can get 3 to 6 months worth of their monthly expenses saved, then then you can put yourself in a position to be prepared for an emergency situation, right? To have at least $1,000 in an emergency savings fund. We're thinking that if you're really thinking about saving in long terms and trying to get to a place where you can be able to establish some sense of security, 3 to 6 months. But even still, when people aren't making money, that's a lot to ask for. And so that's why the hope is that through some of these financial development courses, that they're rethinking how they're making money, they're rethinking how they're looking at money, what it means, how to, all those pieces that go into being able to elevate yourself financially, because you want to be able to set yourself up with the skills to put yourself in a higher earning bracket. And so forth. So there's a lot of things at play when you're talking about folks who are in low socioeconomic areas, when you're talking about investing. But these are still the people who are some of the largest consumers. So the shift has to really be moved from, okay, what are you putting your investments in? And like Erica brought up on her mom money Zoom just for Mother's Day yesterday, thinking about where you're putting those investments. I was like, oh yeah, I'm doing the good mom thing because I'm here, and I've challenged my daughter to have a conversation about the things that she wants. She decided to have a conversation about the things that she wanted. She wanted to get a iPhone 11, but she also recognized that it took an amount of investment from her in order for me to invest in a phone that was ridiculously priced. And so she said, well, the deal is, if you choose to accept that I make straight A's, and at the end of the year, I make straight A's all year long. And at the end of the year, iPhone 11. There was no way that I could say no to that, right? And I'm thinking of doing the good mom thing. Straight A's all year long. I already know what she's going to have to sacrifice. I'm putting it in mind. I'm budgeting because I know what I'm pulling back on. I know what I have to save up for, right? Cool. You know what? I can't say no to that. You gave me a heads up. But in reality, maybe it would be more worthwhile buying her a few stocks. I don't know, but it's all about framing, how you frame what you're giving and investing and giving your child, right? As the psychology of poverty, and I'm going to do a lot of name dropping. I'm doing a lot of name dropping. So Miss Tammy Thompson, she has a budgeting book, and she talks about the psychology of poverty and how so many of us, because we didn't have, we want to give more, right, and give the things we didn't have, but not necessarily giving them the understanding of money or the structure, the culture around money that's necessary, right? Because remember, we were talking about Mr. Strategic Partnerships. He brought up the fact that a person's goals, their culture, and their structure is going to shape how they are really moving in general, what makes them an entity, what makes them independent. is that they have those kind of qualities, and those are the kind of qualities that you use to interact with them and decide what kind of partnership you can have. But at the end of the day, the point is, we're here doing this financial literacy course because there is a bit of what feels like a gap when you start talking about investment. Spending habits might be an integral part of what we consider when it comes to designing this course. So you, in the sense, to say, oh, it seems like you got folks with money around, and it's just like, yeah, you're probably right.
First thought was, knowing what my financial situation is, why would anybody want to take financial counseling from me?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That was one question.
Mm-hmm.
And and I always basically go back to the same thing, that if we elevate our people within our communities, that they can elevate, and then you could still have branches within financial literacy that can offer those kinds of things to people who are in those kinds of positions. And I don't know why. I think my thinking just goes straight to the street, to the ghetto, and catching people at those early ages where they can develop at least the rote financial terminology and understanding the keys of advancing economically within the community, with small groups of people, setting up small types of businesses and pooling their money to do more. You get 3 or 4 kids that are going out selling little small things, whether it's magazines or incense or oil or whatever. They pool their money together and buy some lawnmowers and get themselves a landscaping business,
right,
in the community. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And so that it gives their understanding of investment, a real practical foundation.
Absolutely.
And I'm looking at, there was this movie that I just stumbled across. I guess it was a documentary, Zeitgeist,
right,
Moving Forward.
Mm-hmm.
Man, that thing had some stuff in there, and they're really talking about the concept of money being abstract, and that the way the system is going, and just mathematically with nature and the nature of capitalism, whether you want to call it fulfilling prophecy or whatever, destruction is coming to this bad boy, because in order for capitalism to exist, you have to have a consumer, and if you keep choking your consumer and trying to get more out of them for your goods and services, eventually the biggest impediment to the continuation and growth of capitalism is healthcare.
Yeah.
How are you going to be a good consumer if you're not healthy enough to get to the store or the doctor, and see, I went straight to the store to go to the pharmacy. When you're debating between food and either over-the-counter drugs or prescriptions, sometimes that's a major debate for the disparities in our communities.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess capitalism is about to implode. And so within this economy that I'm thinking of in our communities, we have enough of a lively capital, even if it's a cryptocurrency within our communities, like within this boundaries of Hodgestown. This is what we do in our businesses. We take this cryptocurrency or monopoly money, whatever it is, that's what we use in our community. And when we pool that will have value in our community. And then we navigate how we're going to translate that into the community at large.
Mm-hmm.
But it is, to me, it's like more like, and I can't believe how long I've had that idea, you know, and because what we have to do as a people is stop relying on other people,
Right.
and rely on ourselves, and that's what
Mm-hmm.
seems to be what will the basic bread and butter stuff.
Yeah. And so it's funny because I mean we talk about these things like these are the things that are just on our mind. But I think what is necessary coming from an educational standpoint and trusting that no one is necessarily starting at the very same point. I think it's important and for developing a culture. 'Cause what you're talking about is redefining the culture of how the entire community is operating, if we're being quite honest, right? So we're talking about
Mm,
using what is typically, the standard, which is, and I mean, we're not going too far from capitalism because it's still an exchange, but the
right.
idea is that, now we're saying, we're going to trust each other enough to value what will work. Now, trying to transfer that as a that as an end goal, that's the end game, to making actionable steps towards that. Right, we have to really be able to hone in on what we're trying to you know what are the things that they're going to need to know. Well, they'll have to there's has to be they have to see a value. I mean, anytime people's not going to buy anything they don't need, right? So we have to be generating things that people find value. We have to be helping people generate their own income by helping identify needs and figuring out where they can fill a need. Not everybody is looking at around them at all their circumstances and saying, "Oh, you know what? How do we redefine the thought process to to having this sense of agency and not being dependent on anybody else when this is kind of the culture that has and the standard that has been set." And it's really tough. Additionally, again, talking about folks who have been in poverty, who may have a little bit of money now and just never want to have to hear or see their child ask, want, beg, plead, or go without, which means they, at times overcompensate, giving them the things that they want them to have without aligning them to, a set of strategies to getting it themselves, or showing them that, hey, I'm paying this out of my pocket. This is the budget that I had to take it out of, and this is what you're going to have to go short on when I spend it here. If you're in that situation where you're going to have that give and take, because a lot of what we're dealing with is that we have first generation. So, I mean, we extra low class out here. So, how do you get somebody that's gone from being extra low class to being, higher low class, and who doesn't already have the foundation of the money, financial responsibility, or the culture of money to pass on to their child, get them and to be able to give them that sense of, oh, this is how I work, this is how I work for that, and not be so traumatized by the fact that they didn't have themselves, that they just give it all to their own child and don't teach them the strategies or the thought process. And so my point is that we're dealing with a culture that has, okay, the impact of trauma. Oh, we didn't have. Okay, well, we busting our ass, we doing everything we can, we learning every skill, we doing being 10 times as better than the next person. We pushing this person out the way, that person out the way, because we have to hold on to everything that we are, and establish what our skills are, and we have to be in your face, smart, brilliant, to be able to make those gains. And if you happen to have children, sometimes you teach them that directly, or you are so traumatized by all you had to, all the expenditures emotionally, physically, spiritually that you had to invest in, that you just, willy nilly and say, oh, my child is never, I did all this because my child should never have to, work this hard or do this. And so now they don't understand the connection between what they have and the
And
investment.
work. Yeah, yeah.
And so that's really the culture that we're combating, especially when you're in what I like to call clique culture. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and put this here. And I don't know if, I've never heard anybody else use it before, but the reality is like, we have folks who can find what they think is an answer at the click. right with the ease of a click. And so they think that a lot of what it takes to know and learn comes at a click of the YouTube. Oh, well, I learned this. I watched 10 YouTube videos, so now I know how to do it, even though I don't have any practice in doing things. And so we don't value practice anymore because we have so much access to, information that we just automatically think that we can do a download. And maybe once we evolve our brains well enough, we're there. But I don't think we are just yet. So, we have to be really intentional in saying, okay, well, this is where I think we're going to have to go because this is what we need to be learning first.
Yeah.
So what do we need to be learning first? Because to set us up to be prepared to make the kind of decisions that we're going to have to make.
I kind of took it to an extreme when I was talking about using a particular currency in our communities, but that is a strong possibility, on some levels, but for the sake of understanding and where we're at right now, I'm just reminded of how strong a part the church could be. If they were teaching the kind of economics in our communities to support businesses in our communities, that's just vital, because we could still play the capitalist game, for a few more decades possibly.
Because what I'm finding is that a lot of people are trying to design their own community structures and learning systems and things like that. And I think it's really important for them to be able to have some kind of structure. And so what I'll go that there are some tools that you might be able to use to just help you think and flesh out how you're going to move forward with some of your programming and some of the ideas that you have in mind. Of course, if there are specific things that you are going to need as a community, as a freelance community engagement specialist, I am available and can be reached at area code 252-628-9455. Feel free to text community, text growth, text learning, whatever, text whatever to 252-628-9455, and we can really be thinking about how you're creating an instructional design for your own community that fits the needs that you see are there.